What's up guys? In today's I wanted to answer a really good question I got. I've actually never heard anyone ask this question before, but they were basically describing how you inflict 2,000 points of effect damage to BLAIR and then you complete the mission, and for some reason when they were using Destiny Heroes Dogma, it was not completing the mission. And that's a really good point in question. I want to clear this up. Destiny Heroes Dogma effect does not count as effect damage, and I'm gonna show you guys real quick actually. Alright, so here's Destiny Heroes Dogma. His effect is if you still control this face-up card during your opponent's next standby phase after you special summon it, which requires you to tribute 3 monsters, including at least one that's Destiny Hero, it will halve your opponent life points. So what I'm guessing from the situation they were describing, their opponent was at 4,000 life points. They waited to summon Destiny Hero Dogma. When they summoned him, they wait to an extra turn, and then it cut the life points in half, and they expected that to go through his effect. That is a very good question why that did not activate. A lot of people don't realize that when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh, the wording of a card, it's so important. After you learn the rules of the game and get more in depth of the game, one thing you should definitely look into is the wording of cards. The wording of cards can literally change how good and how bad a card is. For example, a card saying being destroyed by a card effect and sent to a graveyard versus being sent to the graveyard. Those are two completely different things, no matter if they have basically half of the same word. Being destroyed by a card effect and sent to the graveyard is completely different from just being sent to the graveyard, because you can technically be sent to the graveyard by so many different methods. You could be sent to the graveyard by being discarded from the hand. You could be sent to the graveyard from being milled from your deck. You could be sent to the graveyard by battle, by card destructions, by floating effects. There's so many ways to be sent to the graveyard. If they specify if destroyed by a card effect, which means your opponent activated like an effect and it destroyed that card and then it was activated, it's completely different than if it said it was sent to the graveyard. So wording is something you have to pay heavy attention to, because like literally one word can alter an entire effect of a card. Sent or destroyed, just like that one little word there can alter the whole meaning of it. But to simply answer the question, Destiny Heroes Dogma effect will not work for that mission, guys. If you were one of the people trying to use Destiny Heroes Dogma to do the mission against BLAIR, we have to inflict 2,000 points of effect damage, that will not work, because there's nowhere that's technically stated on the card that it inflicts effect damage. It says it halves your opponent life points. There aren't many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh, I believe, that does that. From my knowledge, if I'm not mistaken, this is the only card in the entire game, I think even in the TCG, that has an effect like this. This is a very unique effect where it just cuts your opponent life points in half. Usually a card it inflicts battle damage or inflicts effect damage or something along the line. No, it just cuts in half. Not many cards really do that. And like I said, from my knowledge, I know for a fact in Duel Links, I think this is the only card in Duel Links that does something like this. This does not count as effect damage. You have to make sure the card specifically says effect damage. And I'm so glad someone brought that up, because I never even thought of that, and I wanted to address that, because I never thought of using Destiny Hero Dogma is for doing a mission to inflict effect damage. Thank you, kudos for that question, because I want to answer, and I guarantee there's tons of other people out there that are thinking the same thing, and I just want to clear that up. And I'm going to show you guys the 3 decks you need to use, or you could use, that I would optimally think that are the best ways of doing that mission. And I've had a video on all 3 of these decks before, which I'll leave a link in the description, because I'll go way more detail in those videos. And in this video, I'll just kind of summarize what those 3 do. Okay, so I have 2 Yubel decks. We're going to use my Yubel farm deck like I used in my other video, because this is probably the best one I would use for a situation like this. So there are 3 different decks you guys are gonna probably want to use. I believe there's probably a couple others, but from my knowledge, these really are the 3 best decks to probably use to complete this mission in the game, and that is Yubel, Elemental Hero Fleeing Wingman, and Vassal. Those 3 monsters have the best effect when it comes to inflicting effect damage all at once. A lot of the other cards in this game that inflict effect damage do it over time, or they do like small amounts of chip damage, like Spark, which will inflict like 200 damage, or a card that will inflict 500 effect damage if it destroys a spell or trap card. I believe there's an Elemental Hero card like that. These are the cards that inflict massive amount of effect damage if hit all at once. And that's what you need, because this has to be in a single activation, not over time. Yubel does that with the Yubel Ultimate Nightmare card. This is the key piece of what you're going to do with it. So with this deck, how you can use this deck to complete the mission is you can try to stall out to your last turn or whatever, just whenever you draw it. Gonna use Montage Dragon, and what Montage Dragon does is it special summons itself by sending 3 monsters from your hand to the graveyard, and it gains attack by that. But send a high level monster. Don't use these ones like Disciple of Nephis or Defender of Nephis. Use the ones that are level 4 and above. Because all they need to do is be at 2000 attack. But I recommend you just to use, you know, the Subterra Behemoth card, and then you use the other cards like Yubel or whatever, and then because he'll be at like 10,000 attack. So what you do is you'll tribute 3 of these cards. He gains attack times their level. That's why I said use the really high level ones. Then you'll use Shein Spy, send Montage Dragon to the other side of the field, and use Yubel the Ultimate Terror Nightmare to attack into Montage Dragon. Like I said, I have videos showing you guys exactly how it did, and I'll link those in the description. I don't want to make this video like 20-30 minutes long, because if I were to show you examples of all 3 of these decks, that's how long it would be. I would just recommend which deck you want to use, go to the video I have in the links, and then I have like gameplay of actually how to use the decks. Next, we're going to move to Flame Wingman. Alright, so Elemental Hero Flame Wingman, I feel like out of all of them, Wingman and Vassal might be the easiest, and to me, Wingman might be the easiest more than the other 2, because the other 2 is going to be a lot more of you having to spend gems on boxes to get those cards. I believe out of all the cards in Elemental Hero Wingman, at least the version of the deck I made, my own, when I just improvised on the spot, all of these cards, I don't think require you to draw in a box. Half of them don't, half of them do. But they're not super difficult to get. The most difficult one I would argue to get is probably Wall of Disruption, which what I said in that video was that that's optional. Some of these cards are optional. You can switch out for different versions if you don't have these cards. Couple Vase is another optional one. The Harder Underdog are optional. The draw cards and the trap cards, they're optional. The ones you need are Polymerization. You need Burstinatrix. You need Avian. You need the substitutes. And I would argue you would need Vion or at least Blazeman. And Blazeman you can get from drawing one of the preset decks that are like 1,000 gems or something like that. But half of the cards you need to draw, half of them you don't. That's why this is the easiest one to obtain. It's the hardest one to pull out of the 3, I would argue, but it's the easiest one to obtain by cards. And basically what Flame Wingman effect is it destroys, when it destroys a monster, it inflicts damage equals to their attack. So if you can get a way to get one of Blair's monsters to 2,000, yeah, just giving the opponent monster an equip spell card, and then you attack into it with Flame Wingman, and then he inflicts 2,000 damage. However you want to do it, as long as he inflicts 2,000 damage in one attack, you're perfectly fine. Which most likely, if he did that too, that would just end the match instantly, because not only will you be inflicting 2,000 effect damage, you probably also did some battle damage. But it just depends on how long their life points are. But this is the second option. The third option is Vassal, which is what I did in the last video. Alright, lastly is Vassal. And it's honestly just Gravekeeper, but I call it Vassal because he's the main key piece of how you will pull off this effect. Any battle damage he inflicts is treated as effect damage. Which to me, honestly, I feel like is probably the best of all 3. Because out of all 3, I did it the easiest with him. You can even go back to videos. I believe I achieved it the easiest with him. Just because of how less of a setup and process it is. Really all you have to do is just get Necro Valley on the field, get a Power of Guardians, draw him, and that's it. All these other cards are just filler just until you draw him, or just to keep on the field so Blair doesn't attack. But as long as you have him on the field, a Necro Valley, and a Power of Guardians, or just 2 Power of Guardians to him, you're pretty much good. Just wait until he hits 2,000, and then do a direct attack, and boom, that's 2,000 effect damage. With him, I would argue it is the easiest to pull off. But all of you guys don't also have Gravekeeper, so you might not be able to pull it off if you don't have Gravekeeper. But I would argue it's the hardest to pull off just because all of you guys don't have Gravekeeper. But if you can get these Gravekeeper cards, with Vassal especially, he's probably the easiest actually to get out of all of them, because all you have to do is just rank up with Ishizu by playing rank matches and level up with her and stuff. So if you can just do that, and he might actually be at the card trader, I'm not sure about that. But as long as you can level up with Ishizu, do some rank matches, get up a little bit high in ranks, then you can get at least 2 or 3 copies of it. And as long as you have 1 copy, you can still make a deck around it. It'll be a lot harder with 1 copy, but if you have 3, it's a piece of cake. To me, he's the easiest one to deal with, in my opinion. And all of these cards I put in are easily attainable. The hardest ones will probably be Chief, Spy, and Necro Valley. Necro Valley, I would say, is kind of hard to obtain. It took me a minute to get Necro Valley. It's an ultra rare card, so it's one of the hardest ones to pull out. But you only need one. It's a recommendation. It's not a necessity. You honestly don't need Necro Valley, but if you get it, it will make it 10 times easier. Really, what you need is Power Guardians, which is one of the easiest cards to pull out of all these cards in this deck, and Vassal, which is one of the, I would argue, the second easiest to pull besides, you know, Ambusher. But if you can get Vassal and Power Guardians, you can put a bunch of filler cards in here, and then you'll basically be good. That's basically it, though, guys, about the whole effect damage thing. I hope this answers all you guys' questions about the, you know, inflicting 2,000 points of effect damage to BLAIR Flanagan and, you know, just achieving that mission and stuff like that. Like I said from, I think, 2 videos ago, I personally have to go through all this. I unlocked her through the event. It's just a lot easier. But here's the thing to keep in note. Never feel stressed to unlock a character during an event, because most likely, no, not most likely, all the time, they'll always be available right after the event. It might not all the times right after, but they'll usually a week, a month, something like that. They'll be available after the event. So even if you don't get them during an event, that's the thing I like, is you can achieve them by doing missions. It's a little bit harder because usually in the event, all you got to do is just get super far and you automatically unlock them. There's not missions you have to do to get them, but just the fact you have the chance to unlock them just makes it good. But I hope that answers all you guys' questions. Thank you guys for watching this video. You guys take care.